Alright guys, we're going to get started. Just going over some housekeeping as usual. We're going to have a jam session this week again. It's probably going to be at Farm Logs, so as usual, Wednesday from 6:30 to 8:30. It might be at this place called the Innovation Room, which is on Southview. But we'll send out calendar invites tonight, and we'll try to get back the location to all of you as soon as possible. So look out for that. So there's jam session. Next week is fall break, so we don't have any class next Monday, so don't come to class, just a heads up. And then assignment. We have an assignment due tonight. It's on Canvas, and then we're going to be assigning an assignment today, and it won't be due for 2 weeks. So it'll be due in the next class, or like the next class that we have, which is 2 weeks from now. So just a heads up, assignment due tonight, and then assignment being assigned tonight, due in 2 weeks. Cool, any questions about any of that? Cool, thank you.
Hey guys. This is the attendance today. It's open now, I assume, right?
Yes.
Pamplemousse. It's our favorite flavor of LaCroix. I don't know how to say that. Make sure you get that submitted. Okay, so last time we had a sort of an interesting information architecture lecture. We talked a little bit about that lecture between the instructors, and we talked to a few of you guys. I just want to say, if you're one of the people who talked to us about that lecture, thank you for your feedback. We mentioned this before, but we've never done this before. This is our first time teaching. So any advice you have for us, we really, really appreciate. Just personally, it's really hard to see how this stuff looks from where you're sitting. So any advice or thoughts at all you have in the class, please send us our way. We'd really appreciate that. As we continue with our assignments, you'll see we have plenty of thoughts for you. So just thank you for that. We're going to try a slightly different format for this class. Nothing too different. The main thing that's different is that we've had a bunch of lectures already about what design is and how to research and how to sketch out stuff high level. For the rest of the semester, we're actually going to be drawing UI, which is pretty exciting. Who here knows what UI is? Have we talked about this already? Most of you? Anybody unsure? You don't have to raise your hand. We'll talk about it really quickly just because I think it might be a little unclear. I'm trying to not use too many terms that you guys might not be familiar with, but this is a pretty important one. Let's take, for example, a dude, maybe Bob, who has to go get an Uber. So he has to enter some data into a computer for that Uber to show up. Well, Bob lives in the human land of hands and fingers where we see things, between this big and this big, and we can touch things and interact with them directly. And the data in the Uber app is in the computer. You ever see Zoolander where it's in the computer? You can't get to it super easily. It's not obvious how Bob can manipulate a tiny transistor switch in the computer to change his data, right? So you have to put something in between here. And anything that goes in here is the user interface. If he's calling an Uber, he has to say he wants one, where he is. Once that Uber comes to him, that UI has to tell him that the car is here, what the car looks like, who the driver is, and that's the user interface. This is an example of a user interface. The user would be the driver. The system that he's interacting with or she's interacting with would be the radio inside the car. This is the stuff literally between them and the system. This is another user interface. It's a camera. There's a software user interface here on the screen. There's also a hardware user interface. This class is digital product design, so a lot of what we're going to be doing is apps, but it doesn't have to be an app. A lot of the stuff we're doing is going to be equally relevant to building hardware stuff. Obviously, this is the user interface for somebody who's using an app. That's a lot of what we're talking about. That's what we're going to make today. All right, so raise your hand if you've heard of Wireframing. Quite a few of you. Somebody tell me what it is. I know you know. Yeah? Oh, yeah.
It's basically just planning the layout of the digital interface.
Yeah, I said planning the layout of an interface, right? It's just a sketch. A wireframe is not something that anybody ever sees. It's an intermediary step that designers usually take to plan out what a UI looks like. It's called wireframes because it looks like frames made of really thin lines, like wires. Remember the example last time of a blueprint? This is like a blueprint of your app. Last time we talked about how the different pages of your app relate. Today we're going to be making something within a single page. This is an example of a real wireframe from the company that I work for. This is an actual product that exists in the world. If you don't know, FarmLogs is basically an app that lets farmers draw their fields in an iPhone application or on the web. Then they get information about those fields, like how much rainfall fell on those fields, what the soil type of those fields are, what the temperature of that field is, the activities they've done to that field, and like very precise measurements of the amount of fertilizer they put down or the yield they got off. So on the left here, we have a screen. We call it the field index. It's basically the first thing you see when you go into the app. It's got a list of the fields, name of the fields, some information about each field. You can scroll through it. What do you notice about that screen? Anything particularly interesting? Yeah?
It's just the same entry over and over again.
Yeah, they all say Remington Northwest, the same entry over and over again. Obviously didn't really spend much time on getting the field name exactly right. Yeah?
Why did you choose to put the images on the left rather than the right?
Images on the left and the right. It's a good question. I'm not really sure. I don't actually have a good answer for that. Generally, when you scan, sometimes you scan down the left side of a page. In Western culture, we generally read left to right. So often when people are looking for fields, it's easier to recognize the shape of a field than the name of a field because you have to read the name a lot. So that's one reason. Yeah?
Could it also maybe because most people are right-handed, so when you click on the title, it would be closer than you as opposed to clicking on the image?
He said most people are right-handed, so when you click it, it's closer to you, and you're also not probably covering up the image. It's a really good point. There's a bunch of rainfall stuff in here. The 0.61 inches Monday, 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., that's a rainfall event. That's a moment that it rained on this field. You can see on the right, this is a wireframe of detail. So when you click on one of the fields, you see a lot of information about that field. It's a lot farther down. It keeps growing. There's a lot more information. Of all the stuff we could have put on this page, we went with rainfall. That's because whenever we talk to a farmer, the number one thing they talk to us about is what's the rainfall in their field. So we really promoted that to be the number one thing they see when they're on their field page. Besides the content, like what else do we notice about this? Yeah.
Instead of any like images or changing up the name, it's all just blank and sort of dummy text.
Yeah, dummy text. Whoops. And there's no images, that's what he said. Which is really true. Like I could have found an image of a field pretty quickly, probably in a couple seconds, but I didn't even bother. Just put blank white squares. It's gonna be hard to tell what that need to be. It kind of requires a bit of explaining. I don't know about you guys, but it's hard to tell from here, but that font's kind of like a sketchy font. It's not ever something I would use in a real app. Like there's like an arrow in the upper left of the right-hand screen that doesn't really look like an arrow. It's just like a bracket piece of text. Basically, this is pretty scrappy. There's not really a lot of detail there. This is a comparison of how it actually looks in the app. You can see on the right we have high fidelity. Those are switched. On the left is low fidelity, and on the right is high fidelity. Does somebody explain what fidelity means to me? You heard about that in like music? What is fidelity in music? Yeah?
Well, in this case, it would be the number of details, the amount of details you put into it.
Yeah, he said the amount of detail.
Yes, low fidelity is not very many details. High fidelity is a lot of color, and it's details added to it.
Yeah. Low fidelity, not any color. High fidelity, a lot more color, a lot of details. That's exactly right. It's pretty straightforward. Obviously, we're trying to account for a lot more details besides color. Like on the right, we try a really long name and a really short name to see how they would work. There's different conditions, like what happens when different kinds of rainfall happen, like when do we emphasize the blue badge versus the gray badge. We really try to get everything else perfect. You can see there's even a different button. Like we didn't even figure out there was going to be a search in the wireframe group. Does anybody know like high fidelity music? Really crystal clear sound, everything's just right. You can hear like that cello in the back you didn't know was in there. Low fidelity music is like a really tinny radio. The analogy is sort of the same, more detail. You're exactly right. Well, let's just look at a couple other examples of wireframes. This is from an app called Balsamic, which is a pretty common wireframing tool. We're not going to use it here because we think Sketch is just as good. There's two versions here. This one is using like gray and very fine lines. This one's kind of a sketchy look. If you look back and forth, it doesn't really matter. They're both accomplishing the same thing. You can see this is a wireframe for a desktop application, right? So something you'd use in your laptop. Same principle, so. Black, white, some gray, really high level, no pictures, no big deal. This is another wireframe. This is a very different one. There's not even any text at all. It's way low fidelity, about as low as it gets. It's actually on an iPad, and it was drawn with touch. So this is somebody who's really just figuring out how layout might work. These are a bunch of wireframes pulled off a site called Dribble, which is a really popular site for designers who do visual design. What do you guys notice about these? I know it's kind of hard to see that they're really small, but just in general. Yeah,
It's like in color.
yeah, there's just a couple colors. Even the ones that have a lot of color, they don't use the color how it would be used in the app, right? So see in the top, there's a blue one, it's just a bunch of blue. Like a wire, like a blueprint, right? The one right here, the sort of the dark one there, again, pretty much one color. Anything else you guys notice? Yeah.
There's a lot of repeating shapes.
A lot of repeating shapes. They're using screens over and over and over again, right? They're not just drawing one screen.
The shapes are really rectangular.
Yeah, a lot of rectangles. I mean, obviously, if you're designing for phones or watches or laptops, pretty much any screen, you're going to be dealing with a lot of rectangles. We love rectangles. Not all rectangles, though. See the really bright blue one on the left? There's not even any text in there at all. It's just like a strip where text would go. Anything else? There's some paper ones in the upper right. A lot of people wireframe on paper. So that's it. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to try some wireframing on paper. I've heard from a couple of you guys actually the similar idea about trying to find places to study on campus. So we're going to dive in and try to make an app that helps people study. This is an example, though, of a different app. This is one that Kelsey just put together of some simple wireframes, sort of like what we're expecting you guys to do today in this exercise. So you can see there's 3 different screens. They're not all 3 different screens of the same app. They're actually 3 different screens trying to do the exact same thing. It's 3 different versions. So follow me. In this exercise, we're trying to add a song to a playlist. So on the left, we see a list of the songs you've saved, and you can see a plus button on the right, and that's how you add a song to the playlist, by going to the list of songs you've saved. In the middle, the same goal. We're trying to add a song to a playlist, but it's from a screen when you're actually listening to the song. There's a plus button on the right there, you see there. And on the right, there's another version of adding a song to a playlist, which is a search box. So she's not building a whole flow here. We're just building a couple different versions of the same screen. This is the exercise we want to do with you today. Basically, very similar sketches, just like what Kelsey did, but with a different problem. We want to start designing a format that helps students find places to study on campus. The goal is you have to show places to study on campus. We want you to show how many people are at each location. We want you to show if the place is full or how full it is. And how you show it, whether it's a list or some other way, is totally up to you. The format is we're going to do it on paper. We've got a bunch of paper we can actually start handing out. You can go up and grab some if you want to. Should we hand it out?
Yeah.
We want you to draw about actual size, so that's maybe like 4 per paper. We want you to do at least 2 versions. And then in a few minutes, maybe 20 minutes, we're going to ask you to send them to an email list, and we're going to do a bit of critique and look at what you guys came up with. You guys have any questions about this? Yeah.
Paper to an email address.
Take a picture on your phone and send it to us. This doesn't count for a grade, so if you really can't do it, that's okay, but please, we'd like to see a lot of submissions. We're going to go through a lot of them pretty rapid fire. Any other questions? All right. All right, we're going to try to just get through a bunch and do some critique. Remember we talked about critique and how we're going to get a lot of feedback in this class? It really starts today. I want the critique to come through you guys as much as possible. So we're going to go through these. Raise your hand if you see something interesting, and then we'll have a bit of a wrap up, and then we'll be done. All right. Cool. What do you guys notice about this one? One thing I noticed is that we asked for at least 2, and there are 3 here, which is awesome. And they had a couple different ideas. One is a list of locations, one is a map, and it looks like they both go to a subscreen that has specific tables and where those students are. And there's red, yellow, green on the left that shows whether or not something is occupied or not. So they have like a status indicator using color. Some people are colorblind, so you have to be careful with color. But it looks like they also have numbers, so you can scan color, and then if you can't read color, you can read the exact number. Pretty cool. It looks like they also maybe traced out some lines on their paper. They did a pretty good job making some quick squares, but they weren't too fussed about it. Okay. Nice. What do you guys know about this one? There's an interesting line between these lists here. They did it like blocks. I'm assuming those are like pictures of the place. Maybe icons that represent the place, which the other one didn't use. It's probably a disadvantage to that, though, that you might not be able to see exactly where it is until you click on it. I really like how they're pretty neat with this. Like they did a pretty nice map up there, and they used a little bit of color, but only when it was really important. That was really cool. And they have a similar thing on the side that shows exactly what these places are.
I like that there's the ability to search too.
Yeah, there's a search bar at the top, so if you really know exactly where you want to go, you can find it right away. Cool. Ah, nice. So there's some really clear colors in here. Again, they didn't really use many colors with these, just enough to sort of convey the message they wanted to get to. Some pretty straightforward things about it. There's the stars. Not quite sure what those stars mean intuitively. 2 hours, 4 hours?
Is it like a good place to study? A good rating?
Distance from your location, maybe? That might be something to clarify a little bit in the next one. All right, next one. Ooh, these rounded corners, it's pretty cool. Oh, that's really cool. On the left, they have like these tiers. And then the things fill up as they go. So you can really just swipe them really quickly as long as you can recognize those names. You don't have to see a little tiny bit of UI. That's a really cool idea. On the right, you have a much more complex one. There's like individual people, or those are spaces at the top that are filled. And then when you click a specific spot, there's ratings for a lot of different pieces. Noise level ratings, desk size ratings, Wi-Fi, and type. That's really cool. A lot more data. And maybe some, looks like stars up there.
They named it too. They got a little logo up there. Study spots.
StudySpots.com.
That's cool.
Here's an interesting one. It looks like the one on the left might be a little bit more of a more complex app. This might not be even for a phone. It looks like it could be maybe a tablet app or something. It's basically a straight table. There's a number that shows how many people are there. Produce. I don't actually know what this is. I mean, that's beyond me. This one I really like because we asked for one screen. I think that's a good idea, just focus on one screen. They really moved between a lot of different screens here to show how this is working, I think. So look at that. It's like a tour. They really take you step by step before they show you anything. First, where are you at? Central or north? That's like the first thing you got to know because you're not going to go between central and north, right? Then, study buddy. You're going to pick people you're with, and then they'll find, it looks like they're probably going to find a spot that works for both of you. That's really cool. That's a very different mechanism. Cool. Alright, so again, this is much more specific. Nope, never mind. I thought this was something else. There's a menu on the bottom left. Looks like 3 bars across. I'm not quite sure what those buttons do. And I'm having a little hard time reading what's going on in the middle there, so I can't quite tell. On the right, there's like an accordion. It's kind of the classic accordion pattern, where you can tap on something and it just sort of expands something underneath, rather than moving you to a whole new place. So if you want to show some really quick information about something, that's not a bad option. Reserve being okay. Oh, it sets study zone boundaries. I hadn't thought of that one. That's pretty cool. You can set the boundaries of the place you want to be. So there's this idea that you wouldn't want, not just want to go from like a radius where you are. It's a very specific area you want to go to. That's cool. Forget to include how these spaces are open for. So this looks like a lot of detail. Name something, date something, or type something, location, capacity. Another map, very cool. So on that tablet, there's a vertical view and like a horizontal view for tablets, so you can see that the data is presented differently between different devices.
If anyone else has any feedback or thoughts on these, feel free to shout them out.
Yeah, what's the next one?
We should try feedback from people in
Yes.
the, like in the seats. Anyone want to shout something out about this one? Go for it.
Kind of blank.
What?
Not much there. It's kind of blank.
Yeah, kind of like, maybe
I
they're,
can't see it very much.
yeah, it's a little hard to see.
Let's try it. There. It's easier to see. Anyone else have feedback on this? Yeah.
I think the bar is really good. That shows 80% like visual bars.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Anyone else? What about the stacked buildings thing going on with that left first thing?
Pretty good.
So how you guys think about study spaces too? It's like second floor, third floor, fourth floor, like usually it'd be helpful for you guys to know which one's full by floor, not just by the location. That's kind of what I'm getting at with seeing that one.
There are a couple really cool ways people have done sort of sub-locations within one building where you want to go. I also like how they fold their paper so they can do like quadrants.
So
All right,
there's-
next one. Pretty straightforward. I have a little trouble reading the upper left and the lower left there. Okay, let's do maybe two more and then we'll wrap it up. Another sort of a list, but it shows a filter so you can see how people, you can choose to see other nearby ones, maybe some other ones.
I like that one where it says how many seats are left versus how many have been taken. That's kind of
Yeah,
nice to see as well.
yeah, 8 seats left versus how many are already taken. That's a really good idea.
Good view.
That's cool. There's a heart up there, so you can probably find your most recent ones.
So that on the left says I'm looking for to study a specific class. Is that it's kind of what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, so maybe you can find
That's
other
kind of
people who
interesting.
are studying in the same class.
Alright, last one. Let's get the same one.
Whoa.
All these are,
If you open it, you double click on it, hit Command R, and then
Yeah,
rotate
this
it.
one.
Or Command L.
the one person who gets rotated.
There.
Another one is sort of the tile approach in the middle is pretty cool. And there's a form, so you can really get specific about what you want. All right, really cool. You guys did a really good job with that. You kept it pretty lo-fi, you came up with a bunch of different ideas. I'm pretty impressed. A couple thoughts on wireframes after seeing this. Did anybody feel like they made a mistake focusing too much time on one specific thing? They didn't get enough options out before time ran out? A couple of you guys? That's pretty common to like really try to do too many details on one specific thing. I generally find that if I can get a lot of ideas out, that helps me sort of narrow down my options and I can get a lot more feedback much more quickly. So going broad is a pretty good direction when you're doing wireframes. Any other lessons learned on this? You guys think they're pretty simple? There were not a lot of like a ton of UI elements in there. That's really good. We talked about simplicity being pretty important. Hierarchy was pretty good. You guys use standard mobile patterns. So there's often a bar up top or a menu on the bottom so people could know where they were in the application. They didn't have to think about where they were. The emphasis was pretty good. You guys emphasized the most important thing, which is what we said. Number of students that are still studying there.
I think also,
Go ahead, Kelsey.
well, I just think some of them also are a little bit hard to look at to know what was going on. So maybe a little bit more, just spend a little bit more time making it a little more detailed, but not too much.
Yeah, she said that it's hard to know what was going on, so there's this balance between clarity and fidelity. I think you guys all kept it pretty loose, which is awesome. Nobody went into too much detail, but there were a few that were really hard to read, so make sure if you're going to get feedback on things, everybody can read what you're saying. When we did the critique, we really tried to emphasize the why in what we were giving you advice for, so this is a little bit hard. I would have done this because. So if you're going to give each other a critique, always try to focus on the why. We also try to focus on like how important it is that we do something one way or another. We call this the give a shit level. So if you really don't care about something, just say, don't give a shit, but I was thinking about this. If something's really bad, give somebody that feedback. And And we think you guys really focused on the problem that we gave you. Like nobody really strayed too completely from what we had you guys working on, so that was really good. Next class is 2 weeks from now. We're going to be putting these together and making them interactive. We have an assignment for you this week. It's very similar to what we just did, but we're going to be doing this digitally in Figma or Sketch. Same problem. Minimum 2 versions of a screen that shows these things. No color allowed. It's going to be black and white only, and it's all Comic Sans. Yeah. So.
You guys know that's not a great font? I'm happy about it.
It's an amazing font. Why am I doing this in Comic Sans? Why am I making you design something in Comic Sans? So, seriously, why? Yeah.
So you don't get caught up trying to find this font.
Yeah, so you don't get caught up trying to find a perfect font. Exactly right. Same for color. It's meant via Canvas. Like I said, it's due in 2 weeks. Does anybody have any questions about the assignment?
There's one other thing too. There's going to be a sketch file / Figma file that we'll put with the assignment, so you guys can take a look at that if you want another reference for when you guys are designing this stuff.
Kelsey said there's going to be a file you can use for sample UI elements. Is there a question?
If you're doing your own tracker assignments, you use wireframing for that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, same.
If you want to work on your project, guys, just give me 1 second. I want to get to the questions. If you're working on your own project, you can swap out the content with your own thing. If you want to figure out what you want to work on this semester, that's what you want to focus on. The format has to stay the same.
Let's get to the meat of it. Don't.
Yeah, try to focus on the essential problem. Yeah.
What if you already did the assignment and that format's not posted on Canvas?
If you already did the assignment and in the same format, it's not posted on Canvas, I suppose you'll have an easier fall break. But we're going to
Maybe
critique the
explore
homework.
some more options. Maybe try that. I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to be critiquing these homework, so try to impress us. Take the lessons from this class and try to apply it. Any others? Have a good break, guys.